Welcome to another episode of Off the Menu. I'm your host, Vincent Franchini from Tumblr House, here with the resting comfortably, Charles Coulombe.
Resting comfortably? You mean like I've had some sort of an accident? I'm a celebrity of some kind who's had an accident or an operation, or I've just been found out for a congressional investigation, and I'm resting comfortably.
No, aren't you?
Well, I'm not resting at the moment. I'm actually doing the show, but I'd say I'm fairly comfortable right now. And certainly my social life is about to become very restricted because, as you know, here in dear old Austria, it was just going to be for us unvaccinated Untermenschen. But on Monday, the whole country is getting under lockdown. Lockdown, summer in the city. Well, it's summer in the city in the winter, but anyhow, so we've got the lockdown. And then the government have declared that they're going to make it by February 1st compulsory to be vaccinated, violating both their own constitution and the Nuremberg trials. But, Sieg Heil, baby. I mean, if they want to wear the brown shirt, that's up to them, not up to me. Beyond that, however, we've got several other things. As usual, I am being terrorized by our very own little biker gang here in our little village. It's a biker gang made up of 4 individuals: Marco Colassa, Johannes De Meo, and the Tarek brothers, Uri and Basil. Now they're our biker gang because they've all 4 of them have bicycles.
Got it. Yeah.
What?
And they're terrorizing you from their bicycles.
Well, they're the closest thing we got to a biker gang. You see me standing on the path between the campus and the castle, and they're driving around me, riding around me on their bikes, laughing hysterically. Wouldn't you be terrorized?
I would be terrorized. What a bunch of bullies.
Yeah, they are bullies, but they're good kids. They actually watch the shows, so they're.
Okay, never mind. Wow, they're the nicest, most well-informed people in the world.
They are wonderful kids. They are the epitome of what we want to see in our demographic.
Absolutely.
Because remember out there, all you kids, you're the future. Wow, that's scary. I mean, isn't that great? Still, it can't be worse than the past. Speaking from experience. Speaking of which, also, I took a trip back to the 60s yesterday.
Yeah.
I saw a movie that came out in '89, a comedy with Eric Roberts, Cheech Marin, whose late lamented mother was the receptionist at my high school. And Eric Roberts, Cheech Marin. They were the 2 big stars in it.
Okay.
They play hippies who ran away from New York in '69 to Central America. And in 20 years, I'm sorry to tell you that the whole place had become very yuppie-ish. Even their old friends had turned yuppie. But Louise Ladder, who's an actress you may remember from Mary Hartman, she played a real hippie chick with the name of Ronnie Sunshine.
Wow.
You like that, Ronnie Sunshine?
Mm-hmm.
And on the door on her establishment said, "All God's children are welcome," because that was the hippie ethos. Although at one point she tells the FBI agent, "My door is always open if you need any help." Says, "Great, can I come in and have a look around?" She says, "If you've got a warrant." Anyhow, apart from that, though, it was very self-congratulatory. You may not realize this, but my generation was much more concerned about saving the planet than about personal greed.
Ah,
I
okay.
didn't realize that until I saw the film. Plus, we were into free love in a good way, not a nasty, tawdry way.
Oh, I see.
But it was about being free and easy and open. And it was about living in the moment, living in the now.
How do you do that?
You let the now happen, man. I mean, it's like you've got. I mean, these people are like all hung up on like what's going to happen next, and they forget that the now is all there is.
Wow, that's actually pretty sad.
Yeah, well, especially depending. I think it's more important is which now and what does it mean. But never mind, that's just me. Anyhow, so I saw that. But big thing preparatory to the lockdown, we had, was getting the Thanksgiving goodies, which I did today. And I know everybody watching this, by the time they see us on Monday, are going to be preparing for their own Thanksgiving banquets. All over that great land of Oz, even as we speak, despite the unpleasantries, despite President Hindenburg and Cleopatra in the White House, despite everything, all across the 50 states, turkeys are being bought. Bread is being broken up and ready to be made into stuffing. Potatoes and sweet potatoes and yams are being selected. But wait, there's more. Are you ready for your favorite?
Yeah.
Cans of mushroom soup and green beans are being prepared to turn into green bean casserole covered with fried onions. Dried fried onions, of course. They come in the little bags.
Why would you say that?
Why did I say what?
Why would you talk about those things?
What? Green bean casserole?
Yeah.
Oh, so you're going to make an issue of the green bean casserole.
You know it upsets me.
Look, you've had a problem with green bean casserole since you were 12 years old. You need to get over it.
Why?
What do you mean, why? You can't hold on to these childhood grudges. What did green beans, seriously, what did green bean casseroles ever did to you to merit this hatred?
They're terrible.
In what sense?
In the culinary sense.
Oh, I see. And that's enough to ban them from the dining room table.
That's right.
You know, you could actually divide American households between those who have green bean casserole at Thanksgiving and those who do not.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. You separate the good from the bad, wheat from the chaff.
Do you hear that, ladies and gentlemen? He didn't mean it. He's just still annoyed. I don't want to go into details, but let's just say when he was 12, something happened with a green bean casserole at Thanksgiving. That's all I'll say. But it is Turkey Lurkey Day, and you know what that means. It means the ladies in the secretarial pool are getting ready for the pageant. That's what it means.
Yes, I was going to say that.
And wait, there's more. It's not just them. If I were home this year, I wouldn't necessarily. Well, maybe I would stop by because Tyrone is inviting everybody he feels like inviting to his mama's house for Thanksgiving. And you know how they're going to make their turkey?
How?
His daddy is boiling. He's got this big oil drum, this big trash can, really. They're going to fill it with cooking oil, and outside of the backyard, open fire. They're going to fry it up, heat up the cooking oil, then deep fry the whole turkey.
I've heard of that.
Yeah. Well, Tyrone and his family like that, so we're going to be doing that.
The best turkey I ever tasted, it was I was in grade school, and a friend of mine his family. I don't know why they had to do this, but basically they put it all, I guess, in foil, all the turkey, and they put it in the they had very hot charcoals that they put in the ground, and then they
Ugh.
buried the turkey there on top of the charcoals. And I guess they took it out. I don't know how long they kept it there, maybe a day or so, or a couple days. And it was the most tender, juiciest turkey I've ever had. It was just, because you could just pick it off the bone, and it was just so delicious. I couldn't believe it. You didn't even need gravy. You didn't need anything. It was
So
unbelievable.
it was a turkey luau.
Oh, in a sense, I guess.
Well, you know, the weirdest thing I ever had to do for Thanksgiving turkey. Uh, you may remember my oven at my home, which even today is there. You may not realize that it's the second oven that I had. The first, which was all gas, this one's partly electric, but the first one was all gas. And about 20 years ago, I had made a Thanksgiving turkey. I had everything together, all was set to stick in the oven. And I had people coming over. The oven didn't work. Couldn't get it lit. But the aged Brother Leonard, the wise repository of all knowledge, I said, what are we going to do with this thing? You know what he said?
What?
Boil it. So I boiled it. Well, it didn't look that great afterwards, but it was very tender and very tasty. And of course, I had more than enough stock to make a really flavorful gravy and to make turkey stew for the next day.
I can actually see that a little bit, because like one of the ways I do ribs is to make it tender is you boil it. Otherwise, it's going to be really stringy, and the way to make
Yeah.
it not stringy is to boil it beforehand, and then you put it on the grill and give it some color.
Yeah. So
Wow.
that's I'm really happy about that. I'm happy that we're getting our annual delicious holiday coming up.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's all good.
Good. I'm hugely in favor of goodness.
I am too. I think goodness is so underrated today.
Absolutely. All right. No memes this week. I'm sorry, everyone. Memes have been they've been hard to get. They've been hard to nationalize lately.
They've been playing hard to get.
Yes, they've been playing hard to get.
You know, it reminds me of one of my nephews. I'm not going to say which one, but I think you'll probably know. It's playing hard to get as it makes me think of it. You know, he is the most ungallant of men. And the thing that kind of epitomizes him to me, you know how when a girl would drop her handkerchief, it was an obvious indication that she wants to chat with you.
Yeah.
You know, and then the idea is you're supposed to pick up the handkerchief and say, oh, miss, I'm sorry, I think you dropped your handkerchief. Oh, why, thank you. And then that gives an opening to talk, right?
Okay.
So my nephew, I won't say which one, but I think you'll guess. It actually happened. The handkerchief was dropped like that in front of him. You know what he said?
What?
Excuse me, miss, I think you dropped your handkerchief.
Sad.
I thought so. I thought it was very sad. Not gallant at all.
Nope. Oh well.
Can't have everything. Let's see. Anything else you can say before we've got to go into the big time?
Anything
Well,
else?
yes.
Yeah, the calendar.
Yeah. The calendar. Always the calendar. We've got Thanksgiving coming up. We have St. Andrew's Day for all of you Scots. And you know what that means. It means whiskey. It means haggis. It means mutton. It means neeps and tatties and neeps. It means all kinds of good stuff. And the Scots, you know, we actually make a bigger deal, the non-Catholic Scots anyway, make a bigger deal out of New Year's than they do out of Christmas. Hogmanay. And then in late January, they're going to have Robert Burns Night, which is always celebrated with a Burns Supper. So they've got a lot of stuff in the months ahead. For the rest of us, December 6th, St. Nicholas is coming, the season of Advent. Christmas is coming, the geese are getting fat. Please to put a penny in the old man's hat. If you had a penny, a halfpenny will do. If you had a halfpenny, God bless you. Advent is coming. Be sure to celebrate Advent, gentlemen and ladies. But remember that the great light of Christmas is off there. Thanksgiving is kind of a way station for us Americans on the way to Christmas. And if you're living in the LA area, it's the countdown to the Rose Bowl really begins at Thanksgiving, where people begin to think, what are you gonna do for the Rose Bowl?
You mean parade?
That too.
Yeah.
The Rose Bowl to watch, the Rose Parade to watch.
Yeah.
Very different things. So it's the Tournament of Roses is getting all excited right now, and they're in Pasadena, as is Pasadena Heritage. Pasadena is a very busy little town. Our Lady of Guadalupe will be coming up, and our Mexican friends will get wild. This time of year is just filled with good things. And even if, like some of us, you're subjected to lockdown and all that, don't take that as an excuse to feel bad or to opt out of the celebration. Christmas is coming, ladies and gentlemen, and to the best of our ability, however inconvenient life may be at the moment, we owe it to God himself and to ourselves to keep these feasts as well as ever we can.
I saw Christmas lights up the day after Halloween.
So say that again,
I saw Christmas lights up the day after Halloween.
Well, usually you see them up after Thanksgiving, but Halloween, yeah, I could.
It's getting earlier and earlier, I think, for the wrong reasons.
The wrong reasons, because people are desperate for holiday joy.
There you go.
I hate that phrase, holiday. I told her about the lady that the events coordinator at the VA hospital in the Valley. She had been a nurse in Da Nang in Vietnam and was very well. The VA declared that they couldn't have Christmas trees in the VA hospitals anymore. They had to be holiday trees. So she put up this weird thing. It was an artificial Christmas tree, but it was festooned with symbols of every holiday. 4th of July, St. Patrick's Day, Valentine's. I mean, she had everything on that thing. And she kept it up all year round. And she called it the holiday tree. She said, they want me to put up a holiday tree? There it is. So it was quite a quiet protest.
Good. Good. All right. Are you ready for the questions, Charles?
I are ready. Born ready.
Here we go. 2 questions from James. His first question is, he says, Dear Charles and Don Vincenzo, a prominent recent article has compared America's present state to the late Roman Empire, with the central government gradually losing tight control over the different regions and localities of the country. It also points to the serious popular legitimacy problems that our current rulers have. But another thing that came to mind recently is the reformation of America's civic religion to the cult of woke, which seemed to parallel the rise of the mystery religions ubiquitous in the late empire, like Mithraism or the cult of Sol Invictus. And of course, even as in the late Roman Empire, the persecuted church is present. The faith in the currency is faltering as inflation is beginning to take a serious toll. To sum up, what was Rome's crisis of the 3rd century? Do you think that America could be running headlong into its own version of it? And what is your best guess as to whether it will emerge from it intact or to internally change as Rome did?
Gosh, very good questions to which I have very few answers. Uh, the crisis of the second century, of course, was primarily a crisis at the top, the internal struggles of the various emperors. It finally was resolved with Diocletian, actually. And his way of resolving it was by institutionalizing and divinizing the empire, and that in turn, pardon me, that in turn served as the prequel for the Christianizing of the empire. Good questions. I can't deny the likenesses that you discern. What's going to come out of it? Oh, I don't know. I wish I did. A lot depends, believe it or not, on the church. It really does, because if a leadership ever get their act together, and evangelization once again becomes what we're about, well, the fields are always white with harvest, but it's good if you've actually got the chief harvesters directing the show, instead of the harvestmen trying to do it all on their own without any assistance. Much less the Lord of the Harvest or the Underlord, the Vicar of the Harvest, saying, "Oh, don't worry, they don't need to be harvested." That's kind of dispiriting when you're sent out to the harvest. That, who knows? It's certainly. I do have to say that the current period feels very historically heavy, if you get what I mean. It does feel like big things, for good and for ill, are in the wind. Well, we don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. Well, I mentioned this to Charles before the show. I'll say it again, because Father Ripperger had an interesting video that caught my eye on I forgot the other two people, but where he was saying that a lot of the craziness and a lot of the madness that's happening in church and state is because the demons are panicking because their time is short, which I guess apparently is something that one of the demons said in one of his exorcisms. So that's why you've got some of the leaders saying things that aren't even in their own self-interest. Like, they're so out there and crazy and diabolical that, it just actually backfires against them. So this is like something new. And so I thought that was an interesting possibility that Father Ripperger is pointing out too. But I want to touch on one aspect of this question that's really interesting to me. So he starts the question saying, he's asking, is America like the late Roman Empire, with the central government gradually losing tight control over the different regions and localities of the country? So one of the themes that I got out of your history book of America, Puritan's Empire, is that the central government is dominating states more and more over time. You have different historical events, and central government gets stronger and stronger. So are we going to start going the other way, where the central government, like, things are so messed up that the central government just simply, like, can't control anything anymore?
Well, that's a great possibility. I mean, particularly, look, you've got a country that's got California and Oklahoma in the same union. Now, if you've got a government, a central government that's willing to let the two of them do their own thing their own way, for good or for ill, then California and Oklahoma can coexist. But as soon as you've got a federal government that's going to insist on the one being like the other, or vice versa, then you're going to have problems. Now, the difference, of course, is that Oklahomans are tough and Californians are wusses. Man, I don't mind saying that. I mean, when I say Californians, of course, I don't mean it in the sense of all Californians, but in the sense of the purse-lipped crowd that run the state. They're not tough people. They're nasty when they're in power, but they're not tough. Whereas the Oklahomans are tough. So I think that if the feds try to impose wokery too much on those parts of the union that really aren't into it, it'll backfire in their ridiculous little faces. And mind you, this comes at a time when the presidential leadership is ridiculous. If you thought the Orange Man was bad, President Hindenburg and Madame Pompadour are much worse.
Yeah. By the way, one caveat: I don't know if California is sort of the banner carrier of leading the way in this manner anymore. I know some people who went up to, I don't know if it was Portland or Seattle. It was one or the other. But in one of the towns, you're getting a cup of coffee. You can't even get a cup of coffee now without showing your Vax card.
That's true, and that's true in LA.
Oh, is it? Oh, that's right. Yeah, I guess so. No, actually, I'm not sure if that's true in LA, because I thought it was bars, nightclubs, and lounges.
And restaurants.
Okay. I don't eat in. Well, that's really a shame then. Okay, so LA's not lagging then, I guess.
No, and Mayor Garcetti is as a worthless piece of garbage. Mayor Garcetti, as worthless pieces of garbage go, tends to behave very much like a worthless piece of garbage.
Well, you have to act according to your nature.
Well, this is true. This is true. And if you look at Mayor Garcetti as a being of both matter and form, his form is as a piece of garbage, whereas his matter is as a garbagey piece.
It's true. It's a great dichotomy. All right. James's second question: what exactly does it mean to be in communion with the Pope?
Well, that's a good question. It means you can receive communion from his fingers. And actually, I'm not being funny. To be in communion with anyone means that you can receive the sacraments with or from them.
Isn't it usually in communion with the church?
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the two are synonymous.
Yeah.
Okay. Another phrase is in communion with Rome.
Yeah, of course.
But, Moscow and Constantinople are no longer in communion with each other.
All right. Dylan has a question. He says, please clarify what constitutes incorruptibility of a saint's body. It seems hard for me to tell between accidental mummification and a miracle. Is it true that a saint's incorruptibility has no bearing on the canonization process anymore for this reason? Please share your perspective on incorruptible saints in general.
All right. Well, they do tend to range from almost mummies to almost alive. And obviously, the fresher the body's appearance, the more miraculous.
Whoa, we lost you. I'm sorry. I feel like there's a long pause and then it eventually starts. Can you just start again?
Yeah. As far as natural mummification goes, it all depends on the surroundings of the body. So, for instance, there's a church in Dublin, St. Michael, whose vaults, because of what the material is made of and so on, naturally mummify the bodies that are there. But if you have a body mummified like that for no external cause, that's miraculous. So in other words, you've got 3 bodies lying together. 2 of them fall apart, and the other, quote unquote, mummifies. That's miraculous.
Interesting.
Now, as far as their role in the canonization of saints, actually, it was never a big part anyway. It was something they always take note of, but it wasn't one of the
Miracles?
It was never one of the miracles.
Yeah.
It was noted, of course, but not a miracle. Not the miracles were always medical in nature, or some other kind of wonder, but usually it was medical.
All right. William says, what can you tell us about William of Ockham, the Franciscan philosopher? While many associate his philosophy with Luther, it was influential in the universities of medieval Europe. What was Ockhamism like in a Catholic context? How did it die out? And did it have any long-lasting influence in Catholic theology?
Well, William of Ockham was an English medieval philosopher who came from a town in Surrey called Ockham. He was what was called a nominalist. You see, in the Middle Ages, the biggest question, we've got the ultra-realism fact on this issue on the Tumblr House website. But the issue of Plato's archetypes or forms came up. Were they real or not? Now, for Plato and the so-called ultra-realists, the forms, and what is a form? Well, it's everything from abstract ideals like love and honor to man. You know, why am I a man? Well, I'm a man because I partake of manness. There being this archetypal man in the mind of God, whom I reflect. Aristotle said, no, the forms are real, but they're only the sum total of their concrete expressions. That is to say, that man, the form of man exists, but it's only what all the men who've ever been or ever will be or are now have in common. Then there were the conceptualists, who were founded by Abelard, of Eloise and Abelard fame, and they believed that they were simply concepts. And then the nominalists, who believed that they were only words, names. There was nothing, and they have only the reality that man chooses to invest them with. Well, each of these 4 philosophies had effects on history. Occam's was very strong. Luther was trained as a nominalist. And as a result, his philosophical system collapsed pretty quick, leaving him an enemy of scholasticism in general. The results of the Reformation were that Ockham didn't really have much of a following later, although he'd been big before the Reformation. And now, traditional Catholic types are far more interested in St. Thomas than William of Ockham, or St. Bonaventure, or both, than William of Ockham. And non-traditionalist Catholic types have very little interest in scholastic philosophy at all. So I would say that his influence inside Catholic circles is pretty nil today.
Okay. Sandra says, I wanted to know, has Charles heard of the political theologian Carl Schmitt? If so, what are his thoughts about him?
Yes, I have. I've read a little of him, not tons, but a little. And what I've read, a lot of it I find interesting. He had a real grasp of the role of the Holy Roman Empire in medieval theology, in medieval political theology. he had hoped, like so many Germans of his stripe, that Germany would regain its position as the vessel of Abendland, of the West, of the Occident. Unfortunately, these ideas were first used and then totally disappointed by a little corporal with a funny mustache, Adolf Hitler. And so Schmitt and a lot of people like him were partly discredited by Hitler, which I think is not always fair by any stretch, but that's just me. Anyhow, that was Carl Schmitt. He came to America after World War II and died, I think, in the 50s or 60s.
All right. Let's see. We are going through these questions so rapidly that we only have one question left. So I'm going to ask you impromptu questions based on things that I've been reading lately. How do you feel about that, Charles? Do you think you can handle
I feel
that?
frightened.
Not
I
being
feel
prepared?
frightened. I feel like pouting.
All right. So I'm reading a book that's in the Tumblr House bookstore right now on Junipero Serra. It's published by Clooney Media. In the beginning, one of the things they talk about is that Charles III expelled the Jesuits from all the Spanish lands.
He sure did.
In that it is mostly an enigma and a mystery, and it caused a huge amount of suffering. Because I think the number he said was like 600 something Jesuits this applied to. Would you care to speculate on why this happened?
Well, yeah, sure. The Jesuits had been very powerful in Counter-Reformation Europe, from Portugal to Poland. And their first loyalty was always to the church and to the Pope and not to the local king. So much so that as the 17th and the 18th century wore on, a lot of civil authorities became fearful of their power. But then you had that by itself wouldn't have done anything. But you had the growth of the ideas of the Enlightenment, to which the Jesuits of that day were very much opposed to the ideas of the Enlightenment. Today is a different story, of course. Modern Jesuits are different, but in those days they were Catholic. And unfortunately for them, many of the Catholic monarchs of Europe, like Joseph II, to a degree Carlos III, Louis XV, a number of others, committed themselves to a more or less Enlightenment program. And one of the things that this involved was the state taking more control of the church. Well, the Jesuits were obviously in every way opposed to all of that. And very often, not so much the monarchs, but their ministers, people like Floridablanca, in the case of Spain, who were infected by the Enlightenment, particularly hated the Jesuits. So in Portugal, the king was, I think, King Joseph, and his minister was Pombal, who hated the Jesuits. He prevailed upon the king to expel them from the Portuguese possessions. And once that happened without the king of Portugal suffering anything, then the other kings of Europe, including Carlos III, the other Catholic kings, took advantage and did the same thing and tossed them out. And eventually pressured the Pope to suppress them entirely. But two kingdoms where they were, as educators, where they were revered by the non-believing monarchs, they survived because neither monarch would allow the Pope's bull of dissolution to be promulgated, which meant it had no legal force in Russia or Prussia. And so the Jesuits in those two countries continued until the reestablishment of the order in 1817.
Okay, all right. Final question for today from Marianne. She says, "What did Jesus mean by cast not pearls before swine? Who are the swine? As opposed to our brother who has a mote in his eye. For example, as a convert, most of my friends are from my secular faiths, and especially lately, they and my own sister have been lured into this witch LARP. They're very anti life. They are utterly hostile to the Catholic Church in particular, and they even entertain the hideous notion that our Lord was gay. I've tried to be a light to them and share my love of the faith, and they've only ever responded with mockery or outright hostility. I pray for them, but I don't enjoy conversation. I've even tried to keep the topic totally superficial, but they always bring the conversation around to something disgusting or moronic that makes me cringe. Isn't it unchristian of me to not want to speak to them, especially since I only was nearly as brainwashed as they seem to be?" Great question.
Well, it's an extremely good question. Well, what I would suggest to you is, number one, the next time it happens, take offense. Well, let's say something stupid or annoying. Say, I'd rather you didn't say that. I found it highly offensive. The way they would if you said something about Wicca like it's a phony religion invented in the 1920s. You wouldn't say that because it would be rude. But it's okay for them to be rude. I get it. So do that first. If they don't stop, then what I would do is write a letter to each of them explaining that you really can't associate with them any longer because of their insulting your faith continually, which really is an insult to you personally. You don't do that to them. You expect the same sort of courtesy, and you're not getting it. Now, is that unchristian? No, because you actually figured it out already, I think. Pearls before swine. What is the difference between the two of you? Well, the difference is you figured it out and they haven't. It might be that you're taking such a radical step will be the shock treatment they need, or at least one or two of them, or not. But the sad truth of the matter is, as things stand, you're not doing them or yourself any good. If they have enough regard for you to cut it out, that shows you that despite the religious difference, they're still worth knowing. But if they have so little respect for you after you tell them, after you write them, then you're better off without them anyway. And if any of them have sufficiently goodwill to come to the faith one day, God will find some other means of doing it.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing. Like, you're not the only instrument of God out there, you know. You wonder, what does charity demand? What does humility demand? And ultimately, what got me out of that is the line from Jesus where he says, I think he's doing a parable or a metaphor, and he says, "Whoever doesn't receive you nor hear your words, when you depart out of that city, shake the dust off your feet." So just move along. They don't receive your peace, it's not on you. You have that right.
That's very true. That's very true. So I wouldn't worry your head any further about them. Just, as I say, give them one chance verbally to stop. And if they don't, write them farewell notes. And if the farewell notes don't get their attention, then you're best shed of them anyhow.
All right. Well, this has been a short episode, Charles. How do you feel about it?
It has. I'm not entirely happy. I'm not entirely sad, but I'm not entirely happy. I'm not entirely sad because I am sort of sleepy. I've been resting comfortably. It's very difficult. It's very difficult when you've been resting comfortably to rouse yourself. On the other hand, I do enjoy spending time with our friends. And this holiday thing is coming up. You know, one of the most memorable Thanksgivings I ever spent was with
What?
the Duggins.
Oh, what the? Who are they again?
Well, you remember Bernie and Nish,
Okay.
brothers. Jim and Joan were their parents. And there were quite a few of them as an extended family. But I was there one Thanksgiving, and we watched the Twilight Zone marathon. But we also saw two medieval-esque movies, The Black Arrow and The Sword of the Valiant. And you know, what generally happens, ladies and gentlemen, after Thanksgiving dinner is over, is people watch ball games. But what do you do if you don't watch ball games? Well, fortunately, the Duggins are not ball game watchers. So you've got the good old Twilight Zone marathon, or you can see old movies. Endless supplies of old movies. Whatever you do, though, with this Thanksgiving, even if all you can have is the closest thing to a turkey you've got is a chicken tender, which is pretty sad. But if that's all you got, that's all you got. Give thanks for everything you've got, whatever it is, for the faith particularly, for the place and country where you were born in, for the family you've got, for the friends you've got, for the interests you have, whether it be sports or music or theater, or whatever you enjoy. Thank God for that too. You can even thank God for your favorite television and podcast programs. What? What?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Ah.
You can be even more thankful by supporting your favorite podcasts and programs for as little as $5 a month. You like how I did that, Charles? That was a perfect opportunity. You just laid it up and I just slammed it down. Well done.
Can they really send just $5 a month?
You can send up to $15 a month and become a top floor executive. Get your questions get at the top of that list. Those top floors, when they say jump, I say how high.
Operators are standing by, munching on various bits of food at the moment, so you might find it hard to get through. But no, seriously, yeah, it's good, ladies and gentlemen. It's good being a part of your lives, and I know that both El Jefe here and myself are extremely grateful that you've been so good and so kind to us over the past few years. It's certainly something we have to be thankful for. And remember, in a hateful and annoying as it is when the government or various major companies used it as advertising last year, in a real sense, we are all in this together. So just remember, though, that if it's Monday,
it's off the menu.
The soul you save
may be your own.
God bless you all. Happy Thanksgiving. Gobble, gobble.